Good afternoon and welcome to Live Impact News right here on 13 News Now Plus. Thank you for joining us on this Friday, February 20th. Definitely starting to feel like February is flying by, coming to a close just a little bit here as we are 2/3 of the way through the second month in 2026. Of course, the weekend is approaching. It is relatively warm outside. There is potentially impactful weather on Monday morning. We have a lot to get to today here in Hampton Roads, but we actually begin the show today. You know what? We begin the show today by saying hello to the People's producer, Nia Campbell. Nia, how are you? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
And as you know, because we have been in here discussing it quite a bit, there is breaking news nationally here today when it comes to the Supreme Court and President Donald Trump's tariffs. The Supreme Court ruling 6-3 to strike down President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs that have been imposed over the course of his second term in the presidency. Again, the Supreme Court striking down President Donald Trump's far-reaching global tariffs today with a 6-3 decision. Now, those tariffs unilaterally imposed under an emergency powers law. This includes reciprocal tariffs that were levied on nearly every country. That again, has been struck down with Congress having the power to impose taxes according to the majority of that court in its decision, and those taxes include tariffs. So what we are waiting on right now is actually a White House press briefing. We got word not too long ago that in addition to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, who typically conducts these press briefings, President Donald Trump will be at the White House press briefing today, reportedly speaking at this press briefing in response to the Supreme Court's decision on tariffs. Those tariffs, a major piece of President Donald Trump's agenda, his economic and international agenda in his second term. They have been in and out of the headlines, both for their impact on international relations and their impact on the domestic economy, as well as what they say about the balance of power in the federal government. Well, again, one more time, the Supreme Court striking down President Donald Trump's global tariffs in a 6-3 decision today, with the majority finding that the Constitution, quote, very clearly gives Congress the power to impose tariffs or to impose taxes, which includes tariffs. Again, quote, the framers did not vest any part of the taxing power in the executive branch. That is a quote from Chief Justice John Roberts. Now, there was dissent in this ruling. As you heard, it was not a clean sweep. It was a 6-3 ruling. Justice Brett Kavanaugh wrote in the dissent that, quote, the tariffs at issue here may or may not be wise policy, but as a matter of text, history, and precedent, they are clearly lawful. That is Justice Brett Kavanaugh in dissent of the Supreme Court decision. But with that 6-3 ruling, President Donald Trump's tariffs are struck down, and we anticipate his response to that ruling in this press conference later on today. We will go immediately out to the White House as soon as that press conference begins. Now, we do also have a major local headline that we want to get to right off the top here. If you are a viewer in this area, you are very likely familiar with the story of Angelina Resendez, the sailor at Naval Station Norfolk who disappeared and then whose body was ultimately found deceased, and a fellow sailor has since been arrested in alleged connection to that death. Well, today, LULAC speaking out at Naval Station Norfolk, demanding greater action in the murder of sailor Angelina Resendez. LULAC is the nation's oldest and largest Latino civil rights organization, and they warn that the failure to assure service member safety affects recruitment among Latino families. That is the headline that we received from LULAC in regards to this press conference. That press conference took place this morning. Our own Madison Schlegel was present, and we have that press conference to play for you now, again, regarding the disappearance and death of sailor Angelina Resendez from Naval Station Norfolk in 2025. So we're going to go out to that press conference. We're going to listen in on that press conference due to the significance and the impact of that story. But as soon as President Donald Trump takes the podium, or White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt takes the podium in D.C. at the White House, we will head straight out to the White House. So that is our plan right now for this first hour of live Impact News. Let's begin in Norfolk with the press conference locally here today regarding the death of Angelina Resendez.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. Good morning. Thank you all for coming here today. My name is Danitza James, and I am the Vice Chair for LULAC's Military and Veterans Affairs. I'm here on behalf of veterans, advocates, and families who are demanding accountability and justice for Angelina Resendez. We're here today because critical questions remain unanswered. We're demanding accountability and transparency regarding the May 29th murder of Sailor Angelina Resendez. She was murdered at this military base right behind me, on a base that represents structure, discipline, and duty, on a base where service members are supposed to be protected, on a base where leadership carries a responsibility not only to a mission and readiness, but to a human life. We stand here today because the consequences of inaction are not abstract. They are human. They are daughters who never come home, families who live with permanent loss. The consequences are service members who question whether their safety is truly a priority. This press conference is about responsibility, institutional responsibility, command responsibility. When warning signs are missed, concern dismissed, policies fail, and oversight breaks down. It fails the very people it is meant to protect. Those who protect us. In this case, the lack of preventable action did more than create vulnerability. It created opportunity. Opportunity for a violent serial offender, a predator that was left to move around freely within a system that should have stopped him. A serial offender was transferred and free to exist within the spaces meant to be secure, left free to choose his next prey. While those responsible for safeguarding others simply did not do that. The United States military asked extraordinarily commitment from those who serve. It demands loyalty, discipline, and sacrifice. In return, it carries an unbreakable obligation, and that is to safeguard the lives of its service members. Transparency is not optional. We are here to ensure that Angelina Resendez is not reduced to a report, a story, or a closed case. We are here to ensure that her life and her loss compels change, permanent change. Because when the system fails and no one answers for it, failure becomes a precedent. Today, we will hear from family's legal counsel, Attorney Marshall Griffin. We will hear from Mrs. Esmeralda Cantu Castle, Angelina's mother, whose strength and courage inspire us all. to demand justice louder and louder every day. I will speak again from the perspective of our committee, the Military and Veterans Affairs, and the rest of military veterans and survivors for military sexual assault and trauma. Since the tragedy of Vanessa Guillen in Fort Hood, Texas, LULAC has been pursuing this and asking for accountability and for permanent change that prevents this from happening again, but we continue to see it. We will also take limited questions at the end, and that we ask that all the questions remain respectful, of course, and focus on the facts. It is now my honor to introduce Attorney Marshall Griffin.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I can just give you a quick update on the way forward. So as you all know, the trial has been scheduled for June. To my knowledge, that has not changed. There was a motions hearing in December, and that went off as scheduled. The next hearing is scheduled for March 5th. Motions were due for that hearing on the 18th, so earlier this week. Our role in the case is not one that gives us a lot of access to the substance of the case, so I'm not told about the substance of those motions or if any were even filed. But I would expect that motions hearing, if any motions were filed, those motions will be litigated on the 5th. That's pretty much the state of trial, but it's on schedule right now and still tracking for June. And as far as we can tell, the parties are preparing for trial.
Attorney, it's scheduled for multiple weeks. Do you expect it to last that long?
So it's hard to say. I mean, a trial, this is an extremely complex trial with a ton of evidence that we saw at the Article 32 hearing. That is a long trial. Objectively, 4 weeks is what it's scheduled for right now, but that's not, I don't think, unreasonable given the nature of the charges and the number of victims, frankly. There's a lot to do. I'll turn it back over, and if there's any questions at the end, I'd be happy to answer those.
Hi. Happy New Day. Thank you for coming. So, why are we here? I'm here to ask for an independent investigation into, what happened to Angie, right? We have an individual that we've learned at the Article 32 hearing who harmed several women before he reached Angie. After, and then once he did, all the things that happened in between, the not reporting her missing. We have her petty chief who said he saw her, but didn't do anything when he did see her. That there needs to be some accountability for that. We have statements made by the Secretary of the Navy, information that he was given, and statements that he gave to the public stating that he was told that Angie was locked out of her room. She was locked out of her room. She sent a text message to her friend, and when her friend came to help her out, she wasn't there. And we all know that's not true. So what's happening? Why would that information be given to the Secretary of the Navy? I think it's just not being taken serious. I think that they just want us to go away, that they're waiting for this to go away, that, yeah, we have someone in jail, but that's not it. We're not done yet, because if nothing changes, we're gonna have another Angie. And that cannot happen. So we need Congress to act. We need Congress to, have a committee or an inspector general, a serious, very serious investigation into what is going on and why this is not being taken. Why? Yeah, it's like they don't care. It's like they don't care, and we want justice, right? We want accountability. We want transparency. We want this to stop. We want our military to be what the people believe it to be, right? Safe. Not just safe, or just in the world, a force of good, a force of safety, a force of security. When we think of our military, we want to believe that they're the highest standard that our country could ever be. And that's why we're here. That's why I'm here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I turned off. Hello. It's not working. Sorry. I think I'm just gonna have to speak really loud. So, again, today we stand in solidarity with Esmeralda and her family. We are seeking the truth for the community and accountability and justice for Angelina. Angelina was more than a sailor, more than a service member. She was a daughter, she was a sister, she was a sister in arms for all of us. And a young woman who answered the call to serve this nation. And when a service member raises their right hand, our country assumes a solemn responsibility, not only for mission readiness, but for their safety, dignity, and protection. Their responsibility must never fail them. Our presence here today centers on two clear requests. First, we are calling for an independent investigation into Angelina's death. Military families and the American public must have confidence that investigations are conducted transparently and free from real or perceived conflicts of interest. Secondly, we are calling for the establishment of an independent oversight committee, similar to the commission created following the tragic death of specialist Vanessa Guillen. That commission exposed systemic failures and led to meaningful reform. Angelina's case deserves the same level of independent review and accountability, nothing less. We must also ask the questions that families and service members deserve answers to. For example, were proper procedures followed when Angelina was reported missing? Do clear accountability protocols even exist? And how are they reported?
All right, President Trump has taken the podium at the White House. Let's go live straight out to D.C. right now.
Here, the Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing, and I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, for not having the courage to do what's right for our country. I'd like to thank and congratulate Justices Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh for their strength and wisdom and love of our country, which is right now very proud of those justices. When you read the dissenting opinions, there's no way that anyone can argue against them. There's no way. Foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years are ecstatic. They're so happy. And they're dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long, that I can assure you. The Democrats on the court are thrilled, but they will automatically vote no. They're an automatic no, just like in Congress. They're an automatic no. They're against anything that makes America strong, healthy, and great again. They also are a, frankly, disgrace to our nation, those justices. They're an automatic no, no matter how good a case you have. It's a no. But you can't knock their loyalty. It's one thing you can do with some of our people. Others think they're being politically correct, which has happened before far too often with certain members of this court, and it's happened so often with this court. What a shame. Having to do with voting in particular, when in fact they're just being fools and lapdogs for the rhinos and the radical left Democrats, and not that this should have anything at all to do with it. They're very unpatriotic and disloyal to our Constitution. It's my opinion that the court has been swayed by foreign interests and a political movement that is far smaller than people would ever think. It's a small movement. I won by millions of votes. We won in a landslide. With all the cheating that went on, there was a lot of it, but we still won in a landslide. Too big to rig. But these people are obnoxious, ignorant, and loud. They're very loud, and I think certain justices are afraid of that. They don't want to do the right thing. They're afraid of it. This was an important case to me, more as a symbol of economic national security, and also, I would say, just for our country itself, so important, because we're doing so well as a country. We've never done so well. The good news is that there are methods, practices, statutes, and authorities, as recognized by the entire court in this terrible decision, and also as recognized by Congress, which they refer to, that are even stronger than the IEEPA tariffs available to me as President of the United States. And in actuality, I was very modest in my ask of other countries and businesses because I wanted to do, and it's very important, I wanted to be very well behaved because I wanted to do anything, I didn't want to do anything that would affect the decision of the court, because I understand the court. I understand how they are very easily swayed. I want to be a good boy. I have very effectively utilized tariffs over the past year to make America great again. Our stock market has just recently broken 50,000 on the Dow, and simultaneously, and even more amazingly, broken 7,000 on the S&P, two numbers that everybody thought upon our landslide election victory could not be attained. Think of that. Nobody thought it was possible to do it within 4 years, and we did it in 1 year. They said, you'll never be able, you'll go back and you read the geniuses, read their statements, all of the Nobel Prize winners in economics. They said, no, you couldn't do it in 4 years. Well, we didn't do it in 4 years. We did it in 1 year. We broke every record in the book, and we're continuing to do so. Tariffs have likewise been used to end 5 of the 8 wars that I settled. I settled 8 wars, whether you like it or not, including India, Pakistan, big ones, nuclear, could have been nuclear. Prime Minister of Pakistan said yesterday at the great meeting that we had, the peace board. He said yesterday that President Trump could have saved 35 million lives by getting us to stop fighting. They were getting ready to do some bad things. But they've given us great national security, these tariffs have. And together with our strong borders, reduced fentanyl coming into our country by 30%. When I use them as a penalty against countries illegally sending this poison into our country to poison our youth. All of those tariffs remain. They all remain. I don't know if you know that or not. They all remain. We're still getting them, and we will after the decision. I guess there's nobody left to appeal to. But again, those three people, such respect. I've had a lot of respect for them anyway, but such great respect. But other alternatives will now be used to replace the ones that the court incorrectly rejected. We have alternatives, great alternatives. Could be more money. We'll take in more money, and we'll be a lot stronger for it. We're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars. We'll continue to do so. To show you how ridiculous the opinion is, however, the court said that I'm not allowed to charge even $1. I can't charge $1. Can't charge $1. I would have used 1 penny, but we don't make the pennies anymore. We save money. Can't charge $1 to any country under IEPA. Not $1. I assume to protect other countries. This must have been done to protect those other countries, certainly not the United States of America, which they should be interested in protecting. That's what they're supposed to be protecting. But I am allowed to cut off any and all trade or business with that same country. In other words, I can destroy the trade. I can destroy the country. I'm even allowed to impose a foreign country destroying embargo. I can embargo. I can do anything I want, but I can't charge $1. Because that's not what it says. And that's not the way it even reads. I can do anything I want to do to them, but I can't charge any money. So I'm allowed to destroy the country, but I can't charge them a little fee. I could give them a little two-cent fee, but I cannot charge under any circumstances. I cannot charge them anything. Think of that. How ridiculous is that? I'm allowed to embargo them. I'm allowed to tell them you can't do business in the United States anymore. We want you out of here. But if I want to charge them $10, I can't do that. It's incorrect. Their decision's incorrect. But it doesn't matter because we have very powerful alternatives that have been approved by this decision. You know, they've been approved by the decision for those that thought they had us. And they're saying that I have the absolute right to license, but not the right to charge a license fee. So think of that. I have the right to license, which is a very powerful word. In many ways, license is more powerful than tariffs. In fact, I was thinking about using it. But they came up with the idea that I can license, just like the people that were opposing me told them to do, but not the right to charge a license fee. Think of that. Who ever heard of such a thing? What license has ever been issued without the right to charge a fee? You get a license, you charge a fee. It's automatic, but not with this court. But now the court has given me the unquestioned right to ban all sorts of things from coming into our country, to destroy foreign countries, but a much more powerful right than many people ever thought we even had, but not the right to charge a fee. How crazy is that? Our country is the hottest country anywhere in the world right now. And it was a dead country 1.5 years ago under an incompetent president. But now I'm going to go in a different direction, probably the direction that I should have gone the first time, but I read the language. I'm very good at reading language, and it read our way 100%, but now I'll go the way I could have gone originally, which is even stronger than our original choice. As Justice Kavanaugh, whose stock has gone so up, you have to see, I'm so proud of him, wrote in his dissent, although I firmly disagree with the court's holding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. So, think of that. The decision might not substantially constrain. And it doesn't, he's right. In fact, I can charge much more than I was charging. So I'm going to just start. Although I firmly disagree with the court's holding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. That's because numerous other federal statutes, which is so true, authorize the president to impose tariffs and might justify most, if not all, of the tariffs issued in this case. Even more tariffs, actually. Those statutes include, think of that, those statutes include, for example, the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, Section 232. All of these things I know so well. The Trade Act of 1974, Sections 122, 201, 301, and the Tariff Act of 1930, Section 338, all clear, but it's a little bit longer process. I thought I'd make things simple, but they didn't let us do that. I would like to thank Justice Kavanaugh for frankly, his genius and his great ability. Very proud of that appointment. In actuality, while I am sure that they did not mean to do so, the Supreme Court's decision today made a president's ability to both regulate trade and impose tariffs more powerful and more crystal clear rather than less. I don't think they meant that. I'm sure they didn't. It's terrible. And to think that the Democrats who oppose this only because they want to go the opposite way, they'd like to pack the court. They want to put on 21 people. They want to pack the court, pack the Supreme Court. Maybe they should do it. Maybe they would be better off if they did it. They want to pack the court. They want to do anything to hurt our country. There will no longer be any doubt, and the income coming in and the protection of our companies and country will actually increase because of this decision. I don't think the court meant that, but it's the way it is. Based on long-standing law and hundreds of victories, and even, as I was pointed out before, even thousands of victories over the years, to the contrary, the Supreme Court did not overrule tariffs. They merely overruled a particular use of IEEPA tariffs. And essentially, it's used to get a fee. I can do anything I want with IEEPA, anything. I just can't charge anybody for it. I can license, I just can't charge them. It's ridiculous, but it's okay because we have other ways, numerous other ways. The ability to block, embargo, restrict, license, or impose any other condition on a foreign country's ability to conduct trade with the United States under IEEPA has been fully confirmed by this decision. So now there's no doubt, because, you know, there were a lot of questions about tariffs because no president was smart enough to use them to protect our country from those countries and businesses that were ripping us off. You took a look at the deficits that we had with some of these countries. It was disgraceful what they got away with for many, many decades. But now we know, because this decision affirms all those things that some people weren't sure about. In order to protect, and it says so, in order to protect our country, a president can actually charge more tariffs than I was charging in the past period of a year under the various tariff authorities. So we can use other of the statutes, other of the tariff authorities, which have also been confirmed and are fully allowed. Therefore, effective immediately, all national security tariffs under Section 232 and existing Section 301 tariffs, they're existing, they're there, remain in place, fully in place, and in full force and effect. Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122 over and above our normal tariffs already being charged. And we're also initiating several Section 301 and other investigations to protect our country from unfair trading practices of other countries and companies. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and I say quite simply, which I've said for a long time, make America great again. And interestingly, we've already made it great, so I don't have to use that, but I don't think we'll ever give up on MAGA. MAGA is always going to be with us. If you have a few questions, you can let us know. But just to end, so we're going forward. We will be able to take in more money, and there'll no longer be doubt, because there was always doubt. I know the people that brought the lawsuit, and they're sleazebags, major sleazebags, but I know them, and they're foreign country centric. They were sending things into our country, and the people representing them knew full well, but they were sending things into our country, and they were beneficial to other countries, but very, very bad for us. And I stopped it, and we'll just keep it going. So we have a totally firm decision now, and I don't think the court meant it, because the court doesn't show great spirit toward our country, in my opinion. A lot of bad decisions, but there are usually ways around it. This is something we could have done, as Justice Kavanaugh said, we could have done this originally, but we're doing it now, and the numbers could be far greater than the hundreds of billions we've already taken in. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm very curious. You've spoken about
in the red.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Justice Thomas and Alito, as you know, are the most conservative constitutional justices. Do you think that you'll get to appoint 2 more justices later this term with similar ideologies? And what type of vetting process will they go through to ensure they uphold?
I don't know, but they're great
Constitution?
justices. That's all I can say. And I hope they're going to be around a long time. I hope they're going to stay healthy. They're great people. They're great. And Justice Alito, too, to add to the group. These are great men.
Right.
With a great love of our country and a great understanding of the law.
Mr. President, are you going to ask Congress to take additional action on tariffs now?
No, I don't need to. It's already been approved. I mean, I would ask Congress and probably get it. When people look at the real numbers, and you look at hundreds of billions of dollars that have come into our country. Yesterday, I was at a steel plant, as you know, and I went to great place, great plant, great, wonderful people. And they were telling me, I said to them, you were there, a lot of the press in this room. Of course, I don't think this plane's big enough to take the press in this room, but a lot of the press right here. We were in Georgia. And I said to the owner, I made a speech at a factory. They make steel products. And I said, how are you? Nice to meet you. How's business? President, I'd love to kiss you. This is a very powerful man. I don't want to be kissed by that man, but a very powerful, strong man. He's been in the steel business for many years. His father started it. And he said, sir, I want to kiss you. I said, why? He said, because we were down to working 1 hour a week, and then you came in and imposed tariffs, and all of that foreign junk that they were dropping into our country stopped. And we're now going to double shifts, 7 days a week, and we may be very soon going to 24 hours around the clock, almost 7 days a week. He said, sir, I want to kiss you so badly. And I said, no, thank you. But you know what? He just to finalize it, he said, oh, this is a great place in Georgia. He said, all up and down the highway, same exact answer, sir. We're all going out of business. We're going to go bankrupt. We're all going out of business. And now every one of us are thriving, and we're hiring people like we haven't. He said, like I've never, and he's been in business for, I think, 45 years, like we've never hired before. That's because of tariffs. And we're going to keep it going the same way. And you're going to start to see the results in a year from now when all those factories start that are under construction right now. You see all the construction numbers are so good. Those construction workers are building factories that are going to be open, including not only AI, which is big, but car plants coming in from Canada, who ripped us off for 30% of our market. Mexico ripped us off for a big portion. Over the years, they've taken our market. They've taken our cars. They manufacture them in Japan, Germany, and all over the place because nobody's standing in this position. The position I have as President of the United States had the insight, the courage, well, I don't know what it is, to charge tariffs. You can make your product outside. You can put our people out of business. You can put everybody on the unemployment rolls. But if you're going to make a car in some other country, you're going to pay a 15, 20, 30% tariff. And those things would have never happened. We wouldn't have lost our business. Same thing with, as an example, Taiwan. Taiwan came in, They stole our chip business. They make chips for 30 years longer. They made chip, and they put our companies. Intel would be now the largest company. I saved Intel. I literally saved it at the beginning of this administration. And now all those companies in Taiwan are building factories in Arizona, Texas, and various other places because they don't want to pay tariffs. They're all pouring into the United States. But just like that great patriot said yesterday, sir, what you've done, nobody thought was possible. And Steve Moore, a highly respected economist, came into my office yesterday. He said, you've done something nobody's ever done. 22 Nobel Prize winners in economics said we would right now be in a recession. And you said, no, we're going to have a booming country. We're going to have a booming country. You were right. All 22 were wrong, and you were right. This country is booming, and it's booming because of the election on November 5th, and it's booming for another reason. It's booming because of tariffs. Yeah, please, go ahead.
What will you say ahead of this decision that if the Supreme Court
please,
ruled...
go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. What will you say to foreign nations who seek to renegotiate their deals? And what did you mean a moment ago when you said that the Supreme Court has been swayed by foreign interests?
Well, I think that foreign interests are represented by people that I believe have undue influence. They have a lot of influence over the Supreme Court, whether it's through fear or respect or friendships, I don't know. But I know some of the people that were involved on the other side, and I don't like them. I think they're real slime balls. And got to do what's right for the country. You got to do what's right for the Constitution. That's why I respect so much Justice Thomas and Alito, Kavanaugh, because they not only dissented, their dissent is so strong. When you read their dissent, you know, a lot of times you'll read a dissent and it's like, well, you don't know, it could go either way. There's no other way. The good news is, it's like Justice Kavanaugh said, very strongly said, you have other ways you can go. You don't have to go that way. You can go other way. There are numerous other ways you can go. And frankly, this should have been done by presidents many years ago. They allowed our country to be eaten alive. We lost 50% of our car business. We used to make cars. We made all the cars. And then Mexico came, Canada came, Japan and Germany. But they're all coming back now. They're all coming back at record levels. No, you please. I'm not talking to you. I don't talk to CNN. It's fake news. Go ahead.
Mr. President, yesterday you made the case that the economy is the hottest it's been in a long time. Right. January jobs report beat expectations. CPI report beat expectations. Real wages are up. What would you tell Americans who are worried that this decision will kind of throw the economy that you have projected going in the right direction at a very rapid pace off track?
Well, thank you for the question. And I will say this. We really are at a very important point. I've been waiting for this decision so long. They could have made this decision a long time ago. Not complex. They're wrong on it. It's a ridiculous decision. But they should have released this a long time ago. We waited months. And that gave uncertainty. Now we have certainty. And I think you're going to see the country get much stronger because of it. Look, we were ripped off by almost every country in the world. If you look at the surpluses, almost every country in the world that did business with us, our people were stupid. And I blame presidents for it because they're ultimately the leader. We were being ripped off by almost every single country in the world had some massive surpluses. China had hundreds of billions of dollars in surpluses with the United States. They rebuilt China. They rebuilt the army. We built China's army by allowing that to happen. I have a great relationship with President Xi, but he respects our country now. Now, what we've done, I charged China a 20% tariff as a penalty for sending fentanyl in. And that was 20 times more than they could make by selling fentanyl. And I said, you know, at some point you're going to say, like, and they have reduced it. You know, fentanyl is down by more than 30% coming into our country. Part of that is our strong border. We have a strong border now. But thank you. Thank you for your question.
Mr. President, sir, you warned once in a social media post that if the Supreme Court did this, shot down your tariffs, the U.S. would be, quote, financially defenseless. Are we financially defenseless right now?
No, because we're doing something in a different way. We're doing something in a very powerful way. and we're using things that some people thought we should have used in the first place. But it's more complicated. It's a little more complicated. The process takes a little more time, but the end result is going to get us more money, and I think it's going to be great. Yeah, please. Peter, go ahead.
Thank you, President Trump. So, since Liberation Day, there's about $175 billion in tariff revenue that is now in limbo. Do you have to refund $175 billion?
Think of it, Peter. Very fair question. They take months and months to write an opinion, and they don't even discuss that point. We've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars, not millions, hundreds of billions of dollars. And so I said, well, what happens to all the money that we took in? It wasn't discussed. Wouldn't you think they would have put one sentence in there saying that keep the money or don't keep the money, right? I guess it has to get litigated for the next 2 years. So they write this terrible, defective decision, totally defective. It's almost like not written by smart people. And what they do, they don't even talk about that. Your question is very basic. That was the first question I asked also to make you feel good. I said, what about all the money that we've taken in? Sir, they don't discuss that. How crazy is that?
What you're saying is, are you saying that you don't plan to honor refunds for companies that file for them?
I just told you the answer, right? I told you the answer. It's not discussed. We'll end up being in court for the next 5 years. Go ahead, Green.
Thank you, Mr. President. When you are talking about the relationship with countries that you have sought trade deals with, do you anticipate that they will seek to renegotiate those? What do you say to them? And do you view this as a potential undermining power for your
negotiations? We're going
negotiations?
straight ahead with 10% straight across the board, which was the absolute right to do. And that's taking place. That's a lot of money coming into our country. And then during that period of about 5 months, we are doing the various investigations necessary to put fair tariffs or tariffs, period, on other countries. So we're doing that period, but we're immediately instituting the 10% provision, which we're allowed to do. And in the end, I think we'll take in more money than we've taken in before.
Mr. President, you've used the tariff revenue to pay for a host of federal policies. You've claimed that they will pay for them. What happens
Well,
to
like
those
the
things?
farmers. We took care of farmers. You know, the farmers were mistreated by foreign countries very badly, very, very badly. And last week I gave them $12 billion out of tariff money. We intend to, out of tariff money, because just so you understand, we have tariffs. We just have them in a different way. And now they've been confirmed by the Supreme Court of the United States. So there's no longer that question out there about tariffs. And we'll be taking in hundreds of billions of dollars. And countries that have treated us badly will have to pay a price for treating us badly. And countries that have been good to us will be treated very well. We just left the top person in a place called Vietnam, just left my office. Great gentleman, strong and smart. He said, you know, I think this means you're allowed to charge us more tariffs than before. And Canada said to Jameson, I might want to say it, Jameson, but Canada said, I hope you win this decision, because if you don't win, you'll actually be allowed to charge us with a little additional work, higher tariffs. Jameson, you want to comment on that?
Yes, sir. So to the President's point, we have a lot of tools out there. We have Section 122, which will be implemented today. It will be signed today and implemented very shortly. We have Section 301 investigations, which are incredibly legally durable, where we can investigate and address unfair trading practices that have led to our huge trade deficit. And so you can look forward in the coming days and weeks to seeing all of that come out, and we're going to keep continuity in the program. We're going to keep addressing this so that the deficit can keep going down. That's the trend it has, and we can make America great again.
No.
Several of Republicans in Congress have supported this decision by the Supreme Court, and Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader, has called you a wannabe king. Why wouldn't
him a low IQ?
But why wouldn't
he doesn't even know? And I watched him the other day interview. The guy doesn't even know what a tariff is.
But there's been bipartisan criticism.
No, not
of
bipartisan.
the tariffs.
Excuse me.
There's several
A few
Republicans
people.
have said that.
Yeah,
But
a
why
few people.
wouldn't you just work with Congress to come up with a plan?
I don't have to.
To push tariffs
I have
through?
the right to do tariffs, and I've always had the right to do tariffs. And it's all been approved by Congress, so there's no reason to do it. all we're doing is we're going through a little bit more complicated process, not complicated very much, but a little more complicated than what we had. We'll be able to take in tariffs, more tariffs. And the Congress people and the Congress
down the Canadian tariffs last week.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
been votes
you
in the
know why?
Senate against it.
Yeah, because we lost 2 Republicans or 3 Republicans because they're not good Republicans. What you don't say, you don't say that we got 215 votes.
You need 218 for something to pass.
Yeah, sure we do. We might have lost 3 votes, and we got. And what was the score on the Republican side? 215 to 3, right? But you don't say that. We have great unity. There's great unity in the Republican Party, and I hope everyone's going to vote Republican, because otherwise you won't have a country left, because these people have been destroying. They are destroying our country. Please.
Mr. President, the 122 tariffs, that 10%,
Yeah.
is that going to be for 150 days, or do you want to charge that indefinitely?
We have a right to do pretty much what we want to do, but we're going to charge it starting effectively. I think it's 3 days from now. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, you speak to a lot of factory workers, a lot of manufacturing workers. What does the Supreme Court ruling say? What's that message to those factory workers?
Well, I think the factory workers are happy because we're now telling them that they're going to look. The man I met with yesterday, who owned a factory, was out of business. He was out of business, and now he's employing 5 times. In fact, I walked in. He's got a brand new crane. I said, "How old is that crane?" We got it in December. He's allowed to write it off in 1 minute. The Great Big Beautiful Act gave no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. He said this great big beautiful bill, frankly, has been the best thing that's ever happened for the workers of the, much more so than for rich people. The only thing it does for rich people, it allows them to hire a lot more people. But when I saw him, and then he said, it's all up and down the line. This is a place in Georgia, all up and down, other factories doing different, not only steel products, different. He said, every one of us was out of business. We could barely make it. Some of them were down to less than an hour a week. Think of it, 1 hour a week to make just a few little trinkets or whatever they make. Now they're going round the clock. I had it a month ago. I went to Michigan, went to Ford, and I met with Bill Ford, the head of Ford, and we were in one of the biggest plants, an original plant from the early 1900s, where, by the way, I might add this, it's not really relevant, but it's all relevant. Murders are down the lowest since 1900, around the time that he had this plant. That's 125 years. We have the lowest murder rate. Okay. And our crime is way down in the country. The factories that we're talking about, the people that we're talking about, they are so thrilled with Trump. So whether we charge IEEPA tariffs or whether we charge tariffs under a different section, that's what we're going to be doing. There's no way we can lever. This is what happened to our country. This is why we owe $38 trillion, which we'll get rid of in pretty good course. We have a very incompetent Fed chairman who likes high interest rates. For political reasons, he likes them. But we're going to have somebody very good. Interest rates should come down very substantially. I think we should pay the lowest interest rates on the planet. There should be no country, and we don't do that. We're number 38. This is just bad policy for a long period of time. But what's happened is we've made America strong again. We've made America great again. We should pay. As an example, the country of Switzerland, we were getting almost no tariffs from them. We had a $40 billion deficit. And the prime minister called me up. She said, but we are a small country, because I said we're going to raise it to 39% from nothing. That would have rendered them not very successful, as opposed to right now they're considered elite. But if we put a tariff, they would. And I realized then, she said, but sir, we are a small country. I said, you're a small country with a big deficit. For us, you're making a lot of money off the United States. If we do that, a lot of these elite countries, they're elite because we let them make so much money. And I want them to do well. But I don't want them to do well on the backs of the American taxpayer. So I appreciate your question. I think it's a reasonable answer.
President Trump, you said that you were disappointed with that, but were you surprised with this decision? What you felt when you...
I was surprised because I thought that what we did was, number one, according to, I read the paragraphs, I read very well, great comprehension. I read everything there is to read, and I said, we can't lose this case. But we can when judges are political, when they want to be politically correct, when they're catering to a group of people in D.C. maybe. I don't know what it is, because when you read it, there's no other interpretation. There is no other interpretation. But it's okay, because what has come out, and I'll say it for the third time and maybe the last time in a while, is that we've taken the uncertainty of tariffs out, because we had uncertainty. We got sued by sleazebags, I know them well, that are very outside country, China-centric, but outside country-centric. And they're going to end up not doing as well as they did before. America was becoming really, really, we're strong again. Hey, we have the strongest military. I rebuilt the military in the first term. We have the most powerful military. We make the best equipment. And even them, you know, we could do much better. We have people that get paid a lot of money to manufacture Patriot missiles and javelins and all the different things. But when you want them, they're too slow. And we put them on notice, and they're going to make, our country is building a lot of things right now, and our country is doing really well. And we're going to keep it that way. The bottom line is that the word certainty is now in the equation. Every single thing I said today is guaranteed certainty. It's been tested, as Jameson said 1,000 times. Literally, I said hundreds of times. He said, sir, actually thousands of times, and won in all of the courts. And we're just going back to that. And the problem is that we had other presidents that weren't into trade. They weren't smart. We had some dummies too, you know. I respectfully say we had some real dummies. So.
Okay, so we have been listening to President Donald Trump for some time now, closing in on at least half an hour, maybe more, as he responds to the Supreme Court decision on tariffs. We are going to come out of this particular press conference because, number one, we need to take a quick break, but number two, we actually have a guest joining us here on Live Impact News in order to break down this decision, the potential impacts to come from this decision, and more as far as the Supreme Court ruling on tariffs. So, President Donald Trump continues to talk. We are recording that press conference, but if he says anything else that is notable that we catch wind of, we will be able to go back and listen once again. For now, we're going to take a brief commercial break, and then after that break, we're going to bring on a special guest to talk a little bit more about this Supreme Court decision. Okay, let's go to commercial very briefly here. Okay, welcome back to Live Impact News here on 13 News Now Plus. We continue on with our coverage of the Supreme Court's 6-3 decision to strike down President Donald Trump's widespread tariffs that he has levied in his second term. And this juncture, we're going to bring on a special guest, actually. Alex Jaquez joins us, the Chief of Policy and Advocacy at Groundwork Collaborative, a former Special Assistant to the President for Economic Development and Industrial Strategy. Mr. Jaquez has worked under both the Biden administration and the Obama administration. Alex, we really appreciate you taking some time. Quite a morning for everyone here, of course. I'm assuming the same for you. First of all, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us for a little bit.
Of course. Thanks for having me on. Busy morning. Busy morning.
Busy morning, I bet. And we'll start there. We'll keep it broad to start. I mean, just your initial reaction to this ruling from the Supreme Court.
So this is obviously a blow to President Trump and his what has been kind of near unlimited authority over the Supreme Court. They have checked him on this specific ruling with using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA, to impose tariffs and struck down his collection of $175 billion worth of tariffs thus far. But it does not constrain the president going forward on a number of other statutes that at a press conference just now, he already said that he will be signing to move forward on. So we have two big unknowns. First, how do the next couple weeks and months play out as he is initiating investigations to impose further tariffs on our trading partners? And then what happens to the money that's been collected? All of that is going to have to go through the Court of International Trade. The Supreme Court was silent on whether people are owed, businesses are owed rebates for the money already paid. So still more to come, although this was a huge news this morning.
Yeah, and that press conference ongoing, we did play the entirety of that press conference up until we had you join us here. So we too heard from the president as he sort of went headstrong right into the notion that he would be levying more tariffs, that this would not stop him from levying tariffs. It would only stop him from using IEPA to levy those tariffs. And just for our audience, IEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, it is an act that states that the president does have control over exports and imports in times of emergency. That is the specific thing that has been overruled by the Supreme Court. But as you said, more statutes that allow him to attempt to levy these tariffs. You know, I want to ask something that I've heard you harp on as I was looking through some of your work leading up to this interview, is the danger of the uncertainty that has come with this entire tariff operation. We heard President Trump say multiple times in that press conference that now there is certainty. And yet, in just your first answer here, you note two aspects of this situation that remain uncertain. Do we have any more certainty, or does this remain a very unknown future when it comes to tariffs for businesses and citizens alike?
No, we really don't have any certainty whatsoever. And for the last year or so, we've seen it both in the hard data, the economic numbers, and the soft data, what businesses and consumers are telling us, that people feel like they can't go out and make big purchases. Businesses can't make big investments. They aren't doing much hiring because they really have no idea what the policy is going to look like on trade tomorrow, next week, or next month. And none of that changes today. So while it looks like some tariffs, maybe all of them, will be kind of recreated through these new executive orders that are being signed today, Trump himself said at that press conference, we might have 5 years to go through the courts on these rebates, no matter how long it takes. There are thousands of cases in front of the Court of International Trade right now. It's going to take time to make it through that backlog. And if you're a business that's looking to build a big new factory, you don't know what the president is going to charge for steel or for inputs or components in the next week or the next year. And you don't know if you're going to get back all the money that you've paid over the last year in tariffs. I don't know how you go forward with these major business decisions. So we saw today GDP has been down this year compared to the last 2 years. We've seen in the labor market, basically hiring has crawled to a stop. And there's just really no appetite for making these big ticket investments, big ticket purchases, and big hiring right now.
And then we talk about the uncertainty when it comes to what is going to happen with the money that has been collected from these tariffs so far. President Trump did note in his press conference, which for full posterity has just ended. President Trump's White House press briefing officially over. But back to what we're speaking on here. With that money, he said that he had wished the Supreme Court had included something in their ruling about what to do with that money. Would that have been within the purview of the Supreme Court? Is that something that could have been a part of this ruling?
Sure, it could have. And it was very intentionally punted to back to the Court of International Trade. Justice Kavanaugh, in his dissent, actually wrote specifically about the fact that the majority did not say what to do with all of the money that was collected. According to the Penn Wharton budget model, that's about $175 billion between April 2025 and February 2026. That's not pennies, right? So it's going to be a huge amount of money to figure out how to deal with, and it's going to be complicated. Sometimes the importer of record, the people who actually pay the tariffs, are not the same company as those who are buying the imports. There's going to be a lot of complications over who gets paid, how those payments get spread out. And of course, consumers who ended up paying a good chunk of the tariffs in the form of higher prices for goods, they're not the ones getting the rebates, it's the businesses. And I think it's very unlikely that businesses are going to lower prices at this time, particularly with all the uncertainty.
And, when it comes to, we've already been over, I think, maybe some of the possible answers to this next question, but when it comes to people who are observing this decision and who just keep an eye on the pulse of national politics, they see what's going on, what do you think will be the most common misconception or misinterpretation of what we've seen today from the Supreme Court?
I think that people may think that this is a win for the rule of law, for the Supreme Court coming back and asserting its place in the discourse between the executive branch and the congressional branch. I really don't see that as the case. In fact, the justices were clear, at least in the majority, that the president does have authority to impose either most of or all of the same total amounts in tariffs through other statutes. They just said he couldn't use this one specifically, and they tied it to their, quote, major questions doctrine, which is used to kind of further constrain what agencies can do unilaterally. The Democrats, or the Democratic appointed justices on the court, dissented from that specific interpretation. But I don't view this as a big win for the Supreme Court over President Trump. Minutes after, or hours after they announced it, he basically put all the tariffs back on. We'll see more of that over the next couple of weeks and months, and kind of more confusion in the business community and the economy.
And we talk about that confusion in the business community here domestically, in the economy here in the United States, when it comes to our foreign trade partners who are surely keeping a close eye on this decision. What is the most likely reaction internationally to a decision like this? Does that uncertainty remain for our trade partners as it does for many here in the country?
Definitely. What President Trump said he was imposing immediately is a 10% across the board global tariff. So everybody's going to be hit with it. He's allowed to do that for 150 days through Section 122 authority, it's called. And then he'll need to go to Congress if he wants to go any longer. And in that time period, he's going to launch investigations into countries and sectors specifically so that he can impose either higher or different tariffs based on those investigations. So I think there's going to be a lot of jockeying with our trade partners to try to influence those investigations and those decisions, like there was during the Liberation Day pause. And of course, there's a number of trade agreements that have been agreed to, at least in principle, that now seem to no longer be valid because they involve changing tariff rates that were imposed by IEEPA. So I think, again, this is going to be a lot of a headache for our trading partners who are already concerned about how to navigate the United States' place in the country and how they're using trade authority right now.
And anytime something like this happens, I think people, including us here in the media, have a sort of a desire to break it down into simple wins and losses. And as you stated, maybe the initial reaction to this would be that it is a loss for President Trump and his administration. But just talking to you during this conversation, it seems like in many ways it's just as much of a win. Is that reasonable for me to kind of summarize it that way?
I think so. It's not as much a setback as a step sideways, right? He is still going to go forward and do the ultimate policy that he wants to do. It's just going to take a little different route. I would say if you're looking for losers right here, it's businesses and consumers right now, particularly those who have paid a significant amount in tariffs over the last year and now have no idea whether they're going to get any of that money back.
And so if you are the opposition party, if you are Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and Democrats who are looking ahead to midterms and attempting to, strengthen their party as President Donald Trump continues to push his agenda, what do you think is the most likely move? What are the moves for Democratic leadership as they approach this Supreme Court ruling, or even the narratives that they are going to look to sort of create from this?
I think it's simple. The president illegally drove up the cost of goods. He took money out of the pockets of working people across the country, and he should give it back. There should be refunds due to consumers, not just businesses, not just the ones who hiked prices and had to pay the tariffs, but consumers. You saw the cost of everything from back to school goods to summer grilling equipment over the summer holidays to artificial Christmas trees in December. Basically, everything that we imported went up in cost, and Democrats should fight to get that money back for them. And they should hold President Trump accountable to getting that money back to consumers. He's constantly talking about writing checks, refunds, tariff rebates, tax rebates. I think they should fight for him to give that money back right now. I will say I don't think people want to hear about congressional authority over tariffs or the kind of inside Washington power games that are being played between the branches. People want their money back. They're sick of higher prices, and Democrats should fight to get it back for them.
And, hearing about power games within Congress, just one answer after hearing that the losers in this situation are the American people is certainly difficult for your average person to sit and hear. Now, I don't want to ask, I know this is an incredibly sort of reductive question for such a complicated solution, but since you brought up rebates and payments, is that something where that would just be a flat, almost like what we saw during COVID, just a check that goes out to every American that contains a certain portion of those tariff profits?
You could. I've seen some members of Congress and committees start to talk about making sure that consumers are getting rebates. Of course, it's hard to get an exact dollar figure in what people have paid, but there's analysis out there that households paid $1,200 more last year on average than they would have paid without the tariffs. I think, starting from there and working backwards would be a good place to start.
A broader economic question for you. Obviously, we're in a situation where, as you said, the American people have taken a number of financial losses over the course of the past few years. And so putting money back in their pockets is something that does have some validity to it and may be pushed for in Congress. At the same time, we remain in a very delicate situation when it comes to inflation. Based on everything we hear from Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve, that is something that they are incredibly cautious about right now. Is there any concern that just pumping that amount of money back into the economy could have negative impacts on inflation and continue to keep us stuck in this cycle of suffering from that particular affliction?
Prices are still higher than the Federal Reserve and certainly what the American people want them to be. That is true. We saw this morning prices remain elevated. It's not ticking down to that 2% level that the Fed would like to see. But I'd like to consider the reverse. I think we have done damage to the American consumer by taking money out of their pockets. In the same report this morning, we saw that consumers' real incomes are basically flat. Their wages are not outpacing inflation, and we see that the savings rate has dropped considerably over the last several years. People are dipping into their savings, their rainy day funds, just to be able to make ends meet month to month. And so I think we are in a place where consumers have paid this money. It is owed back to them, and a struggling consumer is also going to be detrimental to the economy. You need spending growth to ensure that we are creating jobs. Jobs were basically flat since Liberation Day. So I think there's real harm on the other side of the equation as well in the economy not growing strong and fast enough.
And then a final question for you. Donald Trump talked a lot about national security and how this could impact national security during his press conference when it comes to the back and forth, the chaos that has come along with tariffs, taking them down, putting them back on. Is that something that is a concern when it comes to national security?
I think the national security arguments that Donald Trump has used to justify these tariffs really don't hold water. He started with the premise that the trade deficit in and of itself is considered a major national security risk. But then when he started imposing further and further tariffs on different countries, I mean, he threatened IEEPA tariffs on Canada for airing a commercial he didn't like during the World Series. He imposed tariffs on Brazil, threatened tariffs on Brazil if they did not pardon their former indicted president, Bolsonaro. He is essentially using that clause and the broad applicability to make up national security justifications for any tariffs he wants to impose.
And you have emphasized this again and again, but just for full posterity, I want to ask one more time, his ability to do that, to use these tariffs in that way that you just described, that remains for the most part, despite the Supreme Court ruling, correct?
Through other statutes. So there will have to be investigations in many cases. There will have to be findings. He can't raise these tariffs at the stroke of a pen in the same way, but essentially he is still going to be able to get there in the end.
Okay, Alex Jaquez, we cannot tell you how much we appreciate you joining us today to clear all of this up. Can't imagine how busy you are, so thanks so much for taking the time to hang with us for a little bit.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. That was Alex Jaquez, Chief of Policy and Advocacy at Groundwork Collaborative, a former special assistant to the president for economic development, and a lot of insight there from Alex, sort of breaking this all down. A situation, a story, a headline that can be very complicated. And so it's always helpful when we can bring a guest on to give us a little bit more clarity about what this all means. A lot of big takeaways from that interview, but I think the one that maybe stands out is that this is not the end of tariffs. This does not mean that President Donald Trump cannot levy tariffs. It is through different statutes now, and through different avenues that he will have to levy those tariffs. And maybe there, like he said, there might be mechanisms that take a little bit more time. He might not be able to do this at the stroke of a pen, but nonetheless, tariffs remain a tool at Donald Trump's disposal and remain something that he can use as a part of his agenda just through different methods. That's something that really is clear after watching that press conference and then having Alex Jaquez on to break it all down. Now, before we kind of move on to other stories, before we start to look at other headlines here, let's look at a tweet from Speaker Mike Johnson on X, or a post on X. This is the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. He says, "No one can deny that the president's use of tariffs has brought in billions of dollars and created immense leverage for America's trade strategy and for securing strong, reciprocal America First trade agreements with countries that had been taking advantage of American workers for decades. Congress and the administration will determine the best path forward in the coming weeks." Much of that echoed in President Donald Trump's press conference, though President Trump appears to be Mike Johnson said in the coming weeks. President Donald Trump said, as Mr. Jaquez emphasized, another 10% tariff very, very soon will be hastily applied. So the amount of time, really, the only difference there. I also would like to read a statement from one of our Virginia senators, Tim Kaine and Mark Warner, both commenting on this ruling. I'm going to go ahead and read the comment from Senator Mark Warner today, who said, "Today's ruling is a win for American families who have been paying the price for Donald Trump's reckless tariff agenda. Let's be clear, tariffs are a tax on American consumers and small businesses already struggling to keep up with rising costs. As families struggle to afford groceries, rent, and everyday essentials, President Trump doubled down on a blanket tariff policy that drove up prices across the board and injected unnecessary chaos into our economy. His whiplash approach has also undermined trust with our allies and opened the door for China to present itself as a more reliable trading partner for the United States. We need a smarter, targeted approach to trade that actually strengthens American competitiveness and helps workers without punishing the very people it's supposed to help, and one that respects Congress's role in setting trade policy. Today's decision is an important step towards restoring some economic sanity for hardworking Americans." And that is the end of the quote from Senator Warner. And those hardworking Americans, highlighted by Alex Jaquez as the ones who will truly suffer from this continued uncertainty, these continued changes in tariff policy, this continued back and forth in Washington, ultimately will hurt the American people, the consumers, according to Alex Jaquez. So plenty more to come on this story, we're sure, in the coming weeks, but a landmark ruling from the Supreme Court today. Now, in terms of our live events, Transportation Secretary Mark Duffy has just taken the podium on one of our live feeds. We don't know exactly what he's going to be speaking on, but why don't we go live out to Sean Duffy right now? It looks like an announcement about road safety efforts. Let's briefly listen in and see what Secretary Duffy has to say.
Our administrator. But under Joe Biden's term, he let 12, 15, 20 million people come into this country illegally. And many of those people thought, well, a great way for me to make a living is I should drive truck. And so they went out and they got commercial driver's licenses and got behind a big rig and drove across this country. And so how did they do that? That's what I want to talk about. How did this come to pass? Well, first off, the prior administration didn't enforce English proficiency rules. There was no consequence. If you couldn't speak the language consistent with our rules, there was no penalty for that. And then the foreigners were able to get driver's licenses, but many of our states issued those driver's licenses illegally. In California, 20,000 foreign driver's licenses were issued unlawfully. 50% of the driver's licenses issued in New York were issued unlawfully, 20% in the state of Illinois. And so one of the problems that we've seen is just because you're a foreigner, that doesn't mean that you can't drive a big rig, you can't drive a truck. Well, what's happened that we've had so many unskilled, unqualified, untrained drivers on American roads? What's happened is many of these potential drivers would go to a commercial driving school, right? Well, Pete Buttigieg in the last administration decided there shouldn't be any rigorous requirements to certify that a school is well qualified to train drivers. He said the schools across America, they could actually self-certify. So any of you here in the room could say, I'm going to start a commercial driver's license school. I'm going to certify that I'm well qualified and I can train students in America. Self-certification in the last administration has brought us CDL mills. And what we found through some of our investigation, and we are not done yet, some of these commercial driver's license schools, some of them don't even have a curriculum. Or others that do have a curriculum, it's only a partial curriculum. They don't have trucks or buses to train any of their students. So what this actually is a CDL mill where you can pay $800 or $1,000 and you don't get any training, and they just certify that you have gone through the schooling requirements to then go and be tested. So that's how we get individuals who have no training. Well, the next part of this is, well, if you go through a school that doesn't give you any training, well, how do you still get a driver's license? How does that come to pass? My daughter's 15 and she's getting her driver's license in Wisconsin, and she goes through a school, but then the state of Wisconsin actually gives her the written test, and the state of Wisconsin will give her a behind the wheels test, and the DMV of Wisconsin will certify that she's qualified. That happens in Wisconsin. But in a number of states, they've outsourced the testing to a third-party tester. So you can go through to a fake school, no training, and then in some of these states, you go to a third-party tester. And the third-party tester is participating in the scam because they're not adequately testing these individuals who have gone through the fake school. We don't run the third-party testing institutions in the states. The states are the ones who say either we'll test at the DMV or we'll outsource this to a third-party tester. But our rules require them to audit all of these third-party testers, to do covert operations to make sure they're adequately testing the students that are doing the skills tests and the knowledge test. What we're finding is many of these third-party testers in states aren't adequately going through the process and testing the students. So you go to a fake school, you go to a fake third-party tester, and you go in with a piece of paper to the DMV, and they will take your picture, and they will give you a commercial driver's license. And you basically have no skills to get behind the wheel of what is potentially a very dangerous weapon. So what have we done at DOT and Federal Motor Carriers? Well, we've increased the penalties for those drivers that are not proficient in English. We'll take their vehicle out of service. The last administration, if you didn't speak English, the penalty was nothing. Get back behind the wheel and keep driving. We've done a nationwide audit exposing the states for giving foreigners these CDL audits, or CDLs unlawfully. Again, that's where we get the 50% in New York and 20,000 licenses in California unlawfully issued. We've issued new rules making it much stricter for someone to get a foreigner or a non-domiciled commercial driver's license. So think about this for a second. You're born in America, you're an American citizen, and you want to become a commercial driver. Well, what the DMV will do is say, well, who are you? I want to look at your driving record. How many infractions do you have? Do you have an OWI or a DWI?
All right, we are back here in the studio after a brief listen in on Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy, because we are now joined in the studio for a look at our forecast here in Hampton Roads. A lot going on today, Evan. We have been just all over the place, but we know that we have to keep an eye on that climate because there may be a weather impact alert in our future.
Yeah, we do have a weather impact alert that is in effect for Sunday evening, as we are looking at this coastal storm. And, even today, we had a lot of that fog out there. We had the dense fog advisory this morning. The fog has started to lift, and we're tracking some showers, even a couple of thunderstorms out there. It is pretty wild as we have gone here through this morning and into the early part of this afternoon. Again, we had the foggy conditions, and we've been watching this front that sort of draped across the area, and it is lifted north, this warm front, and we have seen temperatures get up into the 70s in North Carolina. Haven't quite seen that here in Virginia just yet, but one thing you might notice is that we are starting to see quite a bit of clearing back here ahead of this cold front.
Okay.
So I expect that we will start to see some sunshine breaking through the clouds, and that will allow our temperatures to spike up a little bit.
So we're looking at two different fronts here. We have the warm front
Yes.
going north and the cold front coming east.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you remember yesterday, we were talking about the pips and the barbs.
The pips and the barbs.
So the pips here on this warm front show the warm front is lifting north.
Okay.
Earlier, this front was down here, and it's lifting north. And this cold front is moving to the east.
Okay.
So yes. So temperatures have come up quite a bit here in Norfolk. We're now up to 60 degrees. We've got the southwest winds coming in, and according to this, we are seeing a few breaks in the clouds. And looking at some of our cameras, yeah, we are seeing some brightening out there. Earlier, we were up into the 70s in Elizabeth City and Edenton. We're now down into the 60s. And I think, once we get a little bit more clearing, we will see these temperatures spike up a little bit more. Whether we get all the way up into the low 70s, it might be a little bit of a stretch, but now that that front has lifted off towards the north, we should start to see those temperatures spike. Now, we've been watching these showers roll through, and they've been fairly light, although you might notice that we are tracking, down here in northeastern North Carolina, we've got a couple of thunderstorms moving through Dare County, approaching the Pamlico Sound. So nothing severe, but we do have that line of thunderstorms working its way here right now through mainland Dare County, just passing along the southern edge there of Roanoke Island, approaching Oregon Inlet and the Outer Banks. So we do have that line of thunderstorms where the air is much warmer. So as we go here through the rest of this afternoon, we will start to see some of that clearing. And then the big weather story is what happens this weekend. So as we get into Saturday, I think we'll start out with some clouds and a couple of showers around, and those showers will get pushed off towards the south. It's going to be one of those days where if you're up on the Middle Peninsula, Eastern Shore, you're going to see a lot more sunshine than off towards the south. And then as we get into Sunday, that's the day that we're watching, starting out with rain. And it's going to rain just about all day Sunday. This takes us through 3 p.m. But as we go into Sunday evening, as cold air gets pulled in behind the system, you can see all that green changes over to blue. That's rain changing over to snow. Now, it is very, very tough when you have this changeover situation on wet ground for that snow to really accumulate significantly. But if we get heavier bursts, then that can put down some snow.
Can I interrupt you for a layman's weather question?
Okay.
So I see you talking about snow coming in here, but then I look at these temperatures, and I don't understand how that can be snow when we have temperatures that are a safe distance from freezing level, up there in the high 30s.
Right, fair question.
Yeah.
It can snow even in the low 40s.
Okay.
Now, the thing is once that snow hits the ground, it melts pretty quickly. So, yes, so you could have snow even above freezing, because a lot of times that layer of warm air is very shallow. You go up, a couple hundred feet and it might still be below freezing.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so, it's kind of like there are cases where, like the top of a skyscraper, it's snowing, and the bottom, it's raining.
Hence the tops of mountains where those snow caps.
Exactly.
That we see. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, even just a few hundred feet up, even though the ground is 36, a couple hundred feet up, it still might be below freezing. So not enough time for the snowflake to melt.
Which is all to say we don't expect much accumulation, I'm assuming.
That would be a safe assumption. This is the latest run of Futurecast. And we'll just look at those numbers for a moment. Yeah, a foot of snow, Chincoteague. That's what Futurecast is saying. 2 inches in Norfolk, 4 inches in Virginia Beach. That's not going to happen.
Okay.
Because most of that snow is going to melt.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that we won't get some slushy accumulation on grass and cars and things like that. And if the snow comes down heavy enough, it can overcome those temperatures in the mid-30s, and that snow can start to accumulate. So I think we will get some minor accumulations. The best chances for that would be northern areas, northern neck, middle peninsula, and the eastern shore. And I wouldn't be surprised if, the peninsula and parts of Southside get a little bit of some minor accumulation. But as you rightly pointed out, those temperatures will be above freezing. So a lot of that snow will likely melt on contact.
Okay.
If it comes down heavy enough, you're just bombarding it, with a lot, then you might get some more of that slushy accumulation. It could be enough to make some slick roadways. And it all really does depend on the timing of that cold air working its way in. So we'll fine-tune that a little bit more. So that is just what the computer is saying. That is not what we're saying is going to happen. And we'll, come up with a little bit of a better snow map. I think we'll probably go somewhere, 0 to 2 inches or something like that. So, but because that potential is there, we do have that weather impact alert Sunday night, maybe into early Monday morning for that rain changing over to snow.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so we have our weather impact alert. We're looking at that potential, but you did do a great job of noting all the forces at play here that will likely prevent us from having what would be categorized as a major weather event or snowfall. But it's something you guys are still monitoring.
Right. So yes, that is the thing. I think we will have some impacts. I don't think there will be significant impacts.
Is it something that could potentially impact school attendance on Monday morning? Are we talking about that level of impact?
Possibly, and ignore the banner because I just pulled up this graphic. I haven't even had time to go in there and edit it yet, so I'll go ahead and do that right now. Just kind of to show you what the other computer models are showing. Let's see, we'll take that off here and see if some of those numbers will update on this graphic. But anyways, you can see the GFS and the Euro, are not saying as much. They're saying, a couple inches, and, still northern areas seeing a little bit of a better chance. Not sure why that NAM graphic isn't updating, but let's see if I can get in there.
The NAM graphic's a little stuck here, huh? I mean, it's a
because
Friday.
You just threw this at me.
I did.
I didn't know that I was coming in here. I was told, go enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
We did, yeah. While we try to get the NAM graphic going, let's fill the audience in here. Evan was so nice. He came in here 1:45 today. He said, "Do you guys need me? Is there anything I can do for you? Can I help you in any way?" And I said, "Nope, Evan, get out of here. You go have yourself a good time, have an enjoyable Friday afternoon." And then, lo and behold, 40 minutes later, we sent for him.
no, and that's perfectly fine. Yeah, and I'm not. Let's see. So, that's why that is different because that's 2 day, and this should be a 3 days.
We know we had the weather impact alert. We want to make sure we want to make sure we're bringing you guys all the updates as soon as we can, knowing that there is potential precipitation issues coming.
Right, and yes, I'm just giving you guys a hard time.
That's okay. We deserve.
No. All right.
Oh,
there we go.
That is also fair.
Yeah.
But honestly, we can all just blame the NOM, right? I mean, the NOM forecast model is. And there it goes. It felt the pressure a little bit.
Had to update it. So again, all the models are calling for some snow, but again, that doesn't mean that is what you're going to wake up to, because you can have 2 inches of snow that falls and all of it melts on contact. Right. So the official snowfall report might be 2 inches of snow, but if it melts. It's like if a tree falls in the wood and no one's there to hear it, doesn't make a sound. Right. It's like if 2 inches of snow falls and it melts.
We were just talking about that phrase earlier today. I actually butchered it, I think, when we did it earlier today. It's crazy you mentioned that. Okay, back to the forecast.
No, that's fine. I want to know. Now I'm curious. What is the context?
What were we talking about? I can't remember exactly, Naya. But I used that phrase, and I cannot remember what we were talking about. Well, if we think of it, we'll tell you.
Okay.
Yeah, if it comes to us, we'll tell you. But I did use if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? And Naya's answer definitively was yes.
I mean, yeah, just because no one hears it doesn't mean that it didn't make a sound. It still made a sound.
100%, but it's all a matter of perspective.
I mean, it's just like the Schrodinger's cat sort of thing.
Yeah.
And stuff.
All right, so we've got a weekend coming up where everything will need to be monitored. If people want to continue to watch that, they can keep an eye on 13 News Now Plus, weather 24/7. You can get all of those updated forecasts. As for today, like you said, we're still waiting for that full warmth to come in, right? I mean, it was a little colder than I thought it would be, kind of early afternoon.
Right. Yeah. We haven't seen, that warm front and that warm air totally punched through just yet. Let's take a look at some of our cameras. And I apologize again if some of the city names might be wrong, because we sometimes change these cameras out. No, they're all correct here. So we have seen, some breaks in the clouds, like we're seeing up towards Williamsburg right now. It looks like it's brightening up. We can see shadows now. So we have started to see some of that clearing up around Williamsburg, Newport News, and even look at Hampton. We can see some shadows and some blue sky. So we are starting to see that clearing. And the big question now is going to be, can we get these temperatures to respond? Because notice that they have moved that front just a little bit, that positioning of the front in the analysis here. So I think this is probably a little bit of a better example. We got the warmer air. It's still, I think you could probably even move that back up in here. But we have seen the temperatures warm up here in Norfolk. We got the southwest wind, so we should see these temperatures come up a little bit more. Maybe not hit 70, but we should probably at least get into the mid-60s, like we are seeing in Currituck and Manio. And I know earlier today, Elizabeth City got up to low 70s. So we did have some warm air out there a little bit earlier.
Okay, very good. Anything else that we need to know?
That's probably about it, other than, we will continue to update the forecast here as we go through the, afternoon. We'll get more information in. Of course, I'll be in on the 4 o'clock news. Tim will be in as we get into the 5:30, 6, 6:30, and 11. And then tomorrow, I'll be in tomorrow evening, and Taylor will be in tomorrow morning, so we'll have more information then as well, and Tim will be in Sunday night tracking whatever happens.
Okay, an all-out, full-scale effort from our weather team as they monitor any possible conditions that could affect everyone here in Hampton Roads and Northeast North Carolina.
And again, this is not going to be, I said it on the noon show. Let's see if you know this reference. This is not going to be the big one, Elizabeth.
Right?
Do you know the reference?
Mm-mm.
Milla?
We got Jamila Cromartie has joined us here in the studio. So, also does not know the reference. Okay.
Well, I know I'm dating myself, but it was from a Sanford and Son when Fred Sanford would have a heart attack. He's like, it's the big one, Elizabeth, because his wife had passed away. So this is not going to be the big one.
Okay. All right.
This is
little background information.
Yeah, Ashley got it on the noon show.
Oh no.
So this is going to be, and this is going to have some impacts. This is not going to be a major impact for the entire area. Shut things down. Could there be some school delays? Possibly in some of our northern areas. We'll see how the things evolve. So this is sort of that, here's the alert that potential is there. Doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen exactly the way we see it right now.
Right.
Things evolve, things change. It's a forecast. we get new information all the time, but as we see it right now, there will be some impacts. At this point, it doesn't look like there will be significant impacts.
Okay, fantastic, Evan Stewart.
But weather's always impactful.
Weather's always impactful,
you know,
no matter what it is. Sunshine, rain, it could be 70 and sunny. It's going to impact your life, which is why it is so critical that we have Evan Stewart on here with us, even if it was on short notice today. And you bailed on me on the 6:30 p.m. stream. What happened?
Well, I'm since Craig is on vacation,
right.
I'm working
Craig
an early
Bowler
shift.
on vacation, yep.
So, when people are on vacation, we shift.
They give Craig vacations?
Yeah, Craig gets a lot of vacation.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't get to see you at 6:30, but I will see you at 4 o'clock, all on 13 News Now with more information on this weather forecast. We get a very, very up and down weather situation continues here in Hampton Roads. Evan, we appreciate you as always.
My pleasure. And we're friends here. We just like to tease a little bit. So
Listen,
hopefully that comes across in the stream.
We've got Sanford and Son. We've got trees falling in the forest. We've got weather impact alerts. Always an eventful time with Evan here. And yes, we do like to mess with each other just a little bit here on Live Impact News. Plus, it's a Friday. We gotta step out a little bit on Friday.
Not for me.
Try to enjoy ourselves.
Not for me, since I have to work.
That I apologize for. That was actually an unintentional roast. Even when we're not trying, it happens. We'll have a wonderful shift tomorrow.
Thank you. I will.
Yes. Naya and I will think of you when we are out and about.
That's right. Yeah, weren't you supposed to go two-stepping this weekend?
I don't know anything about any two-stepping.
I thought that was tonight, right?
Well, that was actually me who who assumed that we would all be two-stepping. But sometimes you just got to cozy up and watch a little bit of
Night Agent.
Night Agent. We are two-stepping Night Agent, a big-time recommendation from Nia Campbell. This was a strong, everyone needs to watch this show recommendation from Nia Campbell.
What is that streaming on?
Netflix.
Netflix? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no free
That's
shout-outs.
what I will be doing tonight.
Yes, The Night Agent, and we look forward to your reviews. And we're going to have to watch it at some point, because this is, I think, the strongest recommendation since Scandal that we've gotten from you on a television show.
Scandal was good.
Scandal was good. We're one episode into Scandal.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
we have Naya's advice.
Oh, yeah.
We're watching it periodically.
Yeah, Kerry Washington, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, Evan Stewart, thank you so much for joining us. A wonderful, wonderful Friday forecast from Evan. Now, you know what? I was about to take us to the live board, but I know what Nia Campbell's going to say. Nia, what should we do instead of jumping to another live event?
Take a break.
Let's take a quick break, and then we have multiple live events going on that we will explore after these commercials. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. Naya, quite a forecast there. We went all kinds of different places. That got goofy fast.
It did. It's Friday.
It's Friday. It's our last 15 minutes on a Friday, no less. So that means we don't have much time to explore many other events, which is fine because we have covered a great deal today, starting and primarily the 6-3 Supreme Court decision striking down Donald Trump's tariffs, at least the ones where he used the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. He does still have other statutes through which he can apply tariffs. But let's move on to some other stories, something we've been covering all week and we're expected covering well into next week and beyond is the Colin Gray trial. Of course, the mass shooting at a Georgia high school in 2024, allegedly carried out by Colt Gray. On trial this week, not Colt Gray himself, but his father, Colin Gray. That trial is live right now. Let's go to the Georgia courtroom.
The inpatient it could take. And then when you talk to Advantage, did they tell you, did you describe to them Colt's symptoms and his issues? And did they tell you that they would be able to help him? I'm sorry, it's just the yes thing again.
Yes,
It's fine.
they said Colin could just walk in the door.
Okay. And it didn't have to be that Saturday.
No.
It could be any day.
Yeah.
And you told Colin that he could take him at any time.
Well, I told him that Saturday was the best day for him to take him because there wasn't anybody there. I really didn't say you could take him anytime.
Okay. But you told him Saturday, he worked during the week, so Saturday just sounded like a good idea. Okay. And you asked him to please take him that Saturday, did you? Okay.
I told him I didn't ask him to please. I told him I thought it would be a good idea if he did. But if he didn't, to make sure that he went to school Thursday so he could see the therapist.
Right, because the therapist at the school doesn't work if Colt's not at school.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the situation that you were talking about on Cross where Colt shoved Marcy to the ground while he was holding the rifle, did Colin text you that day saying, I need you to call, I'm at work, something's happening at the house? You remember that?
He did text me that, but I don't remember if it was that day, but yeah.
Okay, so he was aware of that incident.
Well, I don't know. I don't remember when he texted me to call him.
Okay.
I don't remember if it was that day or not.
Okay. Do you remember him telling you about the shoving down? Colin telling you about it?
No, I just remember Colt telling me.
Okay. You don't remember Colin texting you? It's a lot of stuff happening, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that sometimes your
Be in my text.
okay? Is it fair to say that sometimes your memory's not
Yes.
okay?
I'm 76. Yes.
Is it possible that sometimes you can I'm trying to think of the word. I'm getting older too. You confuse different issues, different times with, and sometimes put the same things at the same time that were different.
That's kind of leading. I'm 83, and I feel for it, but still.
Yes, Your Honor. We're talking.
The reword question.
Well, Your Honor, I do believe I'm allowed to lead a little bit when we're talking about her lack of memory and not being able to answer the questions I'm giving. I'm allowed a little bit of leeway under those circumstances.
Well, just re-ask the last, reword the last question.
Is it possible that you have issues sometimes putting two different memories together?
Yes.
Okay.
If I can I do remember calling and I communicating that day.
Okay.
Because I remember him saying, please don't bring Charlie up here with you. That's my husband.
Okay.
Because he was afraid something would happen.
And that
It's about a year.
and that's the day that Colt shoved Marcy down.
I remember him.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Jeffrey Cross, just a couple of things. Take reminding. You knew that Colt and his dad, Colin, went hunting. You knew that that Colt had killed his first deer back in, was it 23 or 24?
23, I think.
And matter of fact, they sent you a video of that. Okay. And so you knew that that his dad and Colt bonded over hunting. They did other things. They played golf, correct? But that was one thing that they bonded over, was shooting. And did Colin tell you that he would take Colt to the firing range?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. This is beyond the scope of rebuttal.
Well, he brought up the bullets.
It is, but I'm going to allow it. Go ahead.
That's all I had.
Okay. Is she be excused?
Please, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. You're free to go. Yep. Who is the state's next witness?
Vicki Lee, Your Honor. Did you need to take a break before?
No, jury, you need a restroom break, or raise your hand if you do. Yes, sir.
State called Vicki Lee to the stand, Your Honor. Just look up. Could you raise your right hand, please? Swear the testimony you give in the now pending before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and not the truth, so be God.
Yes.
Okay. If you could introduce yourself for the jury, please.
My name is Vicki Lee.
And where do you work, ma'am?
Currently, we work for Advantage Behavioral Health
Okay. And where is that located at?
in Athens, Georgia.
And what does Advantage Behavioral Health do?
It is a mental health facility. We do behavioral health assessments on ages from 4 up until whatever adult age, but we do not have the diagnosis there, and also substance abuse diagnosis.
Okay. And what did you do when you worked there?
I was the business manager. I was the manager of the clinic
Okay. And where was that located at?
in Athens, Georgia.
Okay. Do you have a phone system at Advantage Behavioral?
We do.
Okay. And does this record calls when they come in, not the contents of them, but record like the numbers of who called and what time they called?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. And are they kept in the ordinary course of business?
Yes.
And do they do this recording contemporaneous in time as to when it happens?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'm going to show you what's marked State Exhibit 161. Yes, if you identify that, I think what we're going to be looking for is page 3. Are those business records from Advantage?
It is.
Okay. And were those given out as a result of a subpoena from our office? Okay.
Yes.
And was there a phone call made on August 27th? Excuse me.
No objection, 161? No objection.
It's already in evidence, Your Honor.
Yes, there was a phone call. That was me.
Okay. And what was the phone number from that it came from?
I can see on here, but I don't remember specifically, but there's a number here.
Mhm.
You want me to read that one?
Please. Yes.
The number that it came from was 229 425 5704.
Okay. Thank you. And I know you don't know the contents of that, but let's talk a little bit about Advantage Behaviorals. Are y'all open on Saturdays?
Yes, we are.
Okay. If someone was to bring in a child of 14, what would be the procedure for that?
Typically, what happens is we get all of their information. We always do, every child that comes in, we always do a behavioral health assessment.
Okay.
So that's the primary thing that comes in. If there's anything else that happens after that, we'll make a decision at that time.
Okay. Do they have to be brought in by a parent?
They do.
Okay. If someone were to bring in on a Saturday, or do they need an appointment to come in?
No.
Okay.
You don't need an appointment.
Okay. For this behavioral assessment, what would happen if someone, if a child around the age of 14 came in and presented with symptoms that they were cutting themselves with a knife?
Typically, at that particular time, once we do the behavioral health assessment with the therapist, typically, more than likely, we will require a mandated referral to a psychiatric hospital, which is what we typically call the 1013. They are not allowed to leave our facility unless they have to take them to their psychiatric hospital. They are not allowed to leave our facility until that has been done.
Okay. What if they presented with physical violence to parents, such as pushing or hitting?
If we have deemed that is an unsafe environment, we don't allow the child to go back with that parent because we believe that the child needs to be safe and it needs to be a safe environment also between the child and the parent.
Okay. What about property damage, like if the child was putting holes in doors or breaking windows?
All of those would be concerning to a therapist at our facility. Also, if they're having the conversations with the parent and also the child, sometimes at that point we do make that recommendation to be 1013.
Okay, and again, 1013 is inpatient.
Yes.
Okay. It is. What about if the child presented with panic attacks?
That would not necessarily require a 1013, but it just determines what is actually discussed with that therapist at the time.
Okay. What if they said phrases like, I have no control over what these things say and tell me to do?
So those are type of situations or conversations that we primarily would look at. Those types of things, we would kind of, at that particular time, kind of decide if that child would need to go to a psychiatric facility. Most of what we do is homicidal ideations, suicidal ideations. If it is a plan, if they have a plan and things of that nature, those are typically red flags for us.
Okay. What if you find out they have a specific fascination with school shooters?
That would definitely be a red flag for us.
Okay. And what if you found out they also had access to firearms?
That would be a red flag too.
Okay. Just
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Ms. Lee. For the jury, what's a custodian of records? What is a custodian of records?
Medical records?
Well, you said you're the custodian of records for Advantage Behavioral Health?
I'm a business manager.
Business manager.
Yes.
All right. So you're familiar with the records at that practice?
Yes.
Okay. And what is your educational background?
So as far as my education, I do have education in medical billing and coding.
Okay.
So I do have an associate degree in that.
Okay. And I don't mean this, but just to make sure I'm not getting the roles mixed up, you're not a therapist at Advantage Behavioral Health? Okay. Perfect. Gotcha. All right. Well, that must be fun. Okay. So according to this, there were 3 phone calls from this particular phone number. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then it lists the duration of the phone calls by seconds. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. But as you testified earlier, you're not sure what the contents of those were.
Once we were able to talk to the staff, it was determined that what happened was we got a phone call from someone inquiring about I don't know if I'm supposed to say names or not.
All right, so a brief look into the Georgia courtroom as the Gray trial continues, but Live Impact News will not continue. That does it for our Friday edition of Live Impact News right here on 13 News Now Plus. A lot was covered today. We got to really dig deep on the Supreme Court decision on the tariffs. Another thanks to our guests for coming on and breaking it all down for us. Alex Jaquez was tremendous on helping us gain more insight into that decision. Also tremendous, the production of Nia Campbell. She just put her hand up as if to say, Connor, I have something to say. What you got for us, Nia?
No, I was saying we got a wrap.
That was a wrap. I thought that was you saying, do you want to close the show today?
Have a great Friday, everybody. See you next Monday.